Chaos is my middle name, and round 11 of the European Women's Blitz Chess Championship was exactly that. I was facing Elise Bellaiche, a woman FIDE master from France with a rating of 1950. I am very sorry if I mispronounced that. I was doing quite a good tournament, but now that we were coming to the end of it, I really had to screw the screws and just try to perform as good as possible. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, I sat down by the board, I smiled, and we shook hands, and then I took off my cardigan because it was really hot in that room. And I was rocking this cool polo shirt, which is actually the polo shirt of the Monte Carlo team, which is the chess team my mother plays in. There's a lot of strong players in that team, and they gave me the polo shirt before this tournament. So, anyways, the arbiter spoke a little bit, and then after that, it was time for us to shake hands and start the game. She started with the move e4, I went c5, she went knight f3, I went knight c6. This was a Sicilian, and she played c3, the Alpin. And every time someone plays this, I kind of sigh because I don't want to face it. She played d4, I was looking confident because that's all you gotta be in a blitz game. I went d6, trying to exchange in the center. She went bishop c4, and here I had to make a choice. Was I going to move the knight? Was I gonna go e6? I decided to play e6, just simply defending the knight. She spent a little bit of time thinking, and then she ended up castling. And after castles, I moved up my bishop, and I was ready to castle as well. So far, this just seems like a very normal opening, and nothing has turned crazy. I was waiting to see what she would do. She played rook e1, which makes sense. I castled. She moved out her knight, and now my initial reaction was, okay, I don't want her to jump with her knight to the center. I wanna probably take it. I typically do not really like playing against these kinds of openings because the e5 pawn ends up being really strong and it ends up controlling a lot of my position. And sometimes actually black's king can become very weak because with the pawn on e5, it's kind of hard for me to defend as I can never move my knight back to f6. And because I am kind of scared of her attacking, I wanted to be able to trade off queens, which was why I took on e5, thinking that if she takes with the pawn, I'll take her knight and then I will offer a queen trade. Instead, she took with the knight because she really didn't want us to trade queens, which makes sense. White is trying to attack, I am trying to defend, and I know that if I'm able to trade queens, I will not be worse after this opening. So I was just really hoping to trade queens and for her to not have any attack against me. I don't know what I started looking at, but something happened and I started moving around and I made a face of whatever. I'm not really sure what it was, I can't remember it, but she was making the choice and she decided to take with the rook just because she didn't want to trade queens. Now I thought, okay, we're not trading queens, but wait a second, her d4 pawn is an isolated pawn. There's no other pawn that can defend it, which means that I should probably have quite a good position. I decided to play bishop f6 to threaten her rook and add some extra pressure onto her central pawn. She moved the rook back, and it was clear to me now that I had to find a way of attacking the pawn. So I decided to go knight b6, threatening the bishop and threatening to take the pawn, and this told me that I was going to win a pawn the next move, and I was very happy about it. With an extra minute and an extra pawn, things seemed to be sailing smoothly, as one might say. Even though I obviously don't know how to sail. I am not a sailing person, I'm not a boat person. She played bishop d3, I took it with the bishop. Not exactly sure why I didn't take with the queen. I suppose it's because I didn't want her to go bishop e3 and threaten my queen. She played bishop e3 now, threatening a trade of bishops, and I thought, okay, do I want to trade bishops? I could absolutely just trade bishops in that position. I couldn't let her take my bishop and then queen takes because she then can go bishop takes h7, intermediate discovery move, and then my queen is going to be hanging. But I had to make a choice. And I decided to play e5 and defend with the idea that I wanted to open up the diagonal for my dark squared light squared bishop. Sorry, for my bishop. So we traded off a pair of bishops, and then she moved her knight, and I now knew that I had to find a good place for my bishop on c8. Where was the future of that bishop going to be? I kind of looked at the side of the board. I started feeling the pressure of the time. And I ended up playing bishop f5. The idea was that I really wanted to get rid of her bishop, and I thought, okay, now if the knight moves, I'll be able to trade bishops and I'll be happy. She immediately threatened my bishop, and I had to find a place to go with it. But there was only one place that truly made sense to me, even though I had to analyze a little bit. And that place was bishop g6. She played rook d1, threatening my pawn and putting that rook in that open file. I got my rook to the open file as well. She played h3. I think she was trying to play moves really quickly. I decided to play queen d5, placing that queen in the center of the board. She moved her queen to g3. And I'm not really sure why the engine thinks that's a question mark move. I thought it made a lot of sense for her to do that. But now I had to come up with a plan. What was I going to do? I decided to go completely crazy and take the pawn on a2, which honestly was not great. I got very greedy over there. She played h4. Now she was going to start attacking me. It would have been much better to go for something that isn't this chaotic. It would have been much better to just keep my queen safe. But I'm a greedy person sometimes, and this was one moment of greed. So I went back with the queen to simply be able to take on h5 with the queen if she would start pushing. I started feeling the pressure of the clock. I was definitely nervous here. I had no time to spare. I had 40 seconds. She had 48. And now the game was going to become crazy. So she played bishop b1, probably to just play a move and also attack a little bit more my d4 pawn. I went knight c4, simply threatening her b2 pawn and getting my knight into more activity. She moved the pawn, and I was considering where to go with the knight. I knew I had a much better position here, but I just had to figure out what the best move was. I played knight a3. She played bishop d3. I realized my knight didn't have a lot of places to go to. I was going to play rook c3. Then I realized that that hangs a rook. So I went knight c2 instead, with the idea of if she trades, my rook will get very active, and if she doesn't, maybe I can go knight b4, I thought. So she took. Now I thought, okay, now the game is over. I must be completely winning. She moved the knight, but the game was not over. The game was in fact far away from over. I went h6, threatening the knight. The knight went back to f3. I pushed my pawn. Past pawns are supposed to be pushed. I traded off the rooks. I'm up material. I just wanted to trade. I had a beautiful passed pawn. Nothing could stop me now, I thought. She moved up her rook. She was going to try her last attempt of checkmating my king and therefore threatening me. So I checked her. I realized now that she was threatening to maybe go rook e8 check. So I went queen d8 all the way to stop her check. I sneezed, not in the game, but in real life. She went queen e3. I now saw that she was threatening rook e8. I had to bring my rook back. Only had 5 seconds on the clock. 3, 2. I played f6. Just play a move. I had to threaten the rook. She brought now her rook into the attack. I went queen f8. She could take my pawn now, but she didn't see it. I simply moved my king. I was really worried about my time. Her queen went up. I didn't know where to go. I had a second on the clock. I went f5 just to not lose on time. Obviously not a great move, but it was time just to find moves to do. I went f4, sacrificing a pawn, but opening up her king. Queen f7. I just had to play moves. She blundered her h5 pawn, and now I could take it. And I saw now that her king was so weak. She covered with the queen. I decided to trade to make things simpler. I wanted to bring my rook. I brought my rook all the way to c2, threatening the knight. Where was the knight gonna go? She checked me. I went back with my bishop, defending. So good that the bishop was there. The knight went up to f3. I decided to move up my king so that my bishop could be used. She threatened my rook. I played rook c3, threatening now to go check. And now, after she moved the knight, I could have gone check, but instead I took that pawn and now I went check. And after she moved the king, I made a queen. She took my pawn. I played king h8 and she resigned because there was nothing to do here. And we talked a little bit about the game. We were saying that it was really back and forth. And yeah, she said that we were both pushing and yeah, but that I defended really well, I think she said. And then she said that she blundered the pawn. The arbiter asked me for the result, and it was really nice to talk to her after the game. She was sad that she had blundered the pawn, but it had been a great game. And overall, it was just so relieving for me to win this game because there was now only 2 games to go. And if I did well, I would have a fantastic placement in the European Championship. Stay tuned for round 12.